Today we are going to be continuing with Unit D in your textbook, and this is chemical interactions. So we're going to be starting 5.1, carbon-based molecules have many structures. There are two main key concepts for this section. The first one is that both living and non-living structures or things you find in life contain carbon. The second key concept is carbon forms many different compounds. So, living and non-living things contain carbon. First and foremost, it is important to realize that carbon is one of the most important elements for life, and it is found in essentially almost everything. Anything that contains the elements of carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus are known as organic compounds. Now, organic compounds can be found naturally in the environment and can also be man-made. So if you wanted to know if a compound is organic or inorganic, you should look at the chemical formula and identify if there's carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, or phosphorus. If you do not find any of those above elements, it is likely to be an inorganic compound. However, as there are always exceptions in biology, there's also an exception for this. Not all carbon-based molecules are organic, and all you need to know for this grade level is that diamond and graphite and carbon dioxide, those are the three compounds that do contain carbon. However, they're known as inorganic compounds. Carbon forms many different compounds, and this is seen as the large variety of carbon-based molecules that you will observe. The reason that there is such a large variety of carbon-based molecules is that the number of bonds that each carbon atom forms in a molecule will vary. Also, that the carbon's ability to form bonds with atoms of many different elements also varies. So, due to these two reasons, we have a large variety of carbon-based molecules. Not only can carbon form many different compounds, but also the structure of carbon-based molecules can occur in two different forms. It can either have a chain shape or a ring shape. Carbon atoms in a chain shape can either have single covalent bonds or multiple covalent bonds, and this will include the double and triple covalent bond. Remember, a covalent bond is when only one pair of electrons is shared. So if you have double covalent bonds, then you have two pairs of electrons being shared. If you look at the slide after this, you will see that we have full structure versus simplified structures of carbon. If you get on an exam to identify whether it's a full structure formula or a simplified structure formula, all you have to see and notice is that in a full structure formula, every single bond will be shown between the different atoms in the molecule. So you could see here that C in the above diagram, that C shares a bond with 3 hydrogen atoms, and the next C or carbon atom shares 3 bonds between 3 different hydrogen atoms, and there's also another covalent bond between the 2 carbon atoms. If you look at the simplified structure formula, you can only just see the bond between the 2 carbon atoms. What are carbon chains? Carbon chains is essentially very long singular lines, and this shows the carbon atom's ability to bond to each other to form very long chains. So you could see below in the diagram that I included, you have branch chains in which you will have perpendicular lines to the straight chain, and then you also have an unbranched chain, and that is just one horizontal chain. So remember, if you were asked to identify if it's a branched or an unbranched chain, notice that the branch chain will have perpendicular chains to the horizontal chain. Also, the next shape of carbon molecules can be rings. Now, carbon rings can either contain 5 to 6 carbon atoms. However, you will not see a carbon ring occurring naturally that has more than 20 carbon atoms. That does not occur. There are many different types of carbon ring molecules. However, the most important ring molecule is known as benzene. Now, benzene is found in almost everything. In fact, isomer of the benzene ring is found in the vanilla beans that you would get from the vanilla plant, and that would give flavoring for ice cream. So how can you identify a benzene ring? You should first look for 6 carbon atoms and 6 hydrogen atoms in the ring shape molecule. The next thing that you should notice, and this is unique to the benzene molecule, is that between the carbon atoms in the ring molecule contains alternating single and double bonds. So for example, between the first 2 carbons, there'll be a single covalent bond. Then between carbon atoms 2 and 3, there will be a double bond. Between carbon atoms 3 and 4, there will be a single bond. So it always goes single, double, and that is what makes benzene molecule very unique. So in the next slide, you can see exactly what I am talking about, that here you have between carbon atoms 1 and 2, we have a single covalent bond, and then between carbon atoms 2 and 3, you have a double. Now, in a very simplified form of the benzene ring structure, you'll just see that a hexagon structure with a circle in the center, and that is the universal sign or signal for the benzene ring structure. The last term that I'm going to be discussing in this section are isomers. Now, isomers are when the carbon molecule contains the exact same atoms. However, the atoms are just arranged differently, and therefore the molecule has a different structure. So for example, butane and isobutane, those are isomers of one another. Why? Because both of them contain the same atoms. If you take a look, both contain exactly 4 carbon atoms and 10 hydrogen atoms. However, the difference between the two is that they have different structures. Butane is a straight chain, however, isobutane is a branched chain. So butane and isobutane are known to be isomers of one another. Now, there's a unique property about isomers, is that sometimes the carbon-based molecules can shift from one isomer to another and then back to the original structure. And a very important example is the isomer of a molecule called retinal. Retinal is a molecule that is present in the eye, and it is very important for vision. When light strikes the retinal molecule, its structure changes from one isomer to another in order to allow for signals to be sent from the eye to the brain. After the retinal isomer starts the communication process between the eye and the brain, the molecule will then shift back to its original structure. So as you could see, isomers are very important not only in the environment but also in the human body as well.